If you're there at about 6 a.m. on a summer's morning and the mist is just coming up off the water and the sun is rising, it is the most majestic, you swear you're in heaven.
Pat Coldrick, what was your inspiration for the song Wake Up Onto Me, the song from your original album, your first album, called Cayendo?
Wake Unto Me was one of the first pieces I wrote, and the inspiration for that piece came from a beautiful part of Ireland where I grew up and spent many times when I was younger and still do. It's an area called the Boyne Valley, and through the Boyne Valley flows a very famous river called the Boyne River. And it's so beautiful because the river flows through valleys and woodland and hills, and on a summer's evening or a spring morning, it's the closest place you will get to heaven. And I always went down there, and anytime I was there, I felt very close to nature. I felt very close to God. It's a very inspiring place to be. And one morning at about 6 a.m. during the summer, while the mist was coming up off the river and the sun is just rising, it's heavenly. And I wrote this piece, Wake Unto Me, inspired by this beautiful area and this beautiful river.
Pat Coldrick, you have a new album out called Ophelia.
Yes.
What is the new album about?
The new album is an album with a collection of pieces that I've written alongside some Irish traditional pieces arranged by myself. I've also collaborated with two very famous Irish musicians called Finbar Fury and John Sheehan. And we've done some pieces together. The whole inspiration and idea for Ophelia came from a guitar that I built 2 years ago. And we called the guitar Ophelia. And the reason we called the guitar Ophelia is that we completed the guitar build on the day one of the biggest storms that has ever hit Irish shores came, and the name of the storm by the weather people, they called the storm Ophelia, and we completed the guitar the very day Ophelia was over the country. And I just thought, with calling the guitar Ophelia and the storm, I decided and got the inspiration from the storm to put together and call this album Ophelia.
And how does this new album differ from the two first albums?
Yes, this album is different because there is a lot more traditional and kind of Irish music flowing through. So the whole spirit of the album has a hint of Irishness to it, of folk as well. Where originally the first album, Cayendo, was a selection of pieces much more kind of lyrical and from the repertoire, and where I played a lot of pieces from different countries, different styles, and pieces from the classical guitar repertoire. Then when I recorded the album City Jam, my second album, that was an experimental album where, again, I wrote some new music, pieces like Antarctica, Elena, and also Antarctica and Elena. Well, yes, and City Jam is title track, where I used many effects from the studio, alongside the classical guitar to give the music a visual aspect. So when you're listening to the music, you close your eyes and you're in the whole situation. Like City Jam itself was inspired by a trip to New York, where I found the place so busy, and cars and lights and people rushing by, and the whole sense of panic and stress was in that piece. So it was very experimental, and normally the classical guitar wouldn't normally be used in a situation like that, but it works, and this is what I enjoy doing. And also with these pieces as well, again, more big masterpieces from the guitar repertoire, like Handel's Passacaglia, and also Sevilla by Albanese, Sueño and a Foresta by Barrios. So the music is much deeper. The music is much more varied. There's more of me as a musician and as a composer in City Jam. Also, the album, there's more of me. It's a more mature. It's a more mature album than Cayendo. Ophelia, I always wanted to do an album, and many people have asked me to do an album that would include music from Ireland and an album with a more folk and traditional type of spirit. And what I did with Ophelia, a lot of the music on it has a hint, just a hint of Irishness. And also on this album, where I haven't done on the previous albums, is did a couple of collaborations. And I was delighted to get the very famous Irish fiddle player from the Dubliners, John Sheehan, to join me. And we played and recorded an arrangement of Shibiog Shimor, which is a piece from Turlough O'Carroll. And I also got the very famous Finbar Fury to play on one of the pieces called The Jumping Church, where he plays the uilleann pipe. So it was fun doing collaborations with these musicians as well, and it was a total new direction for me, and really had a lot of fun. And the album, actually, I feel Ophelia is the best work we've done so far, actually, personally, and it seems to be connecting with so many people and doing very well at home at the minute.
And I have a question about the studio recording. When you were recording with the whistle and fiddle player from the Dubliners, can you tell us a little about that? Because was it recorded in the studio live, with you both playing, or did he use headphones and overdubbing, or?
No, we have played it together in a live situation, but in the studio recording situation, just for accuracy and for we didn't play it together. John would have overdubbed the fiddle. I would have played separately, and he would have played separately. It's better. You don't have spillover from microphones, or it's easier then for the engineer to balance it as well. And so you would do one instrument, and then you would sort of layer over then with another instrument. So no, we didn't actually play together at the one time. But in a live situation, of course, you'd be playing together.
In your new album, Ophelia, you are playing some Irish tunes, yes, and some of them you arrange yourself. But every time I think about Irish guitar, I tend to think about the flat picking approach, because there are so many fiddle tunes, Irish fiddle tunes out there, and they have been adapted to the guitar by the great late Doc Watson, and also other players like Tony Rice and some of them. Yeah. But your approach for playing the Irish tunes is with your self-taught finger-picking style.
It is actually, yeah. That's an interesting point. All right. I mean, I have my own type of arranging pieces. Like, I tend to play. Oh, how can I put it? Like, what I'm always trying to do is pick out the melody and also kind of accompany myself. Like if you had a piece like or like, yeah, I mean, I imagine when I'm arranging it that I'm singing, actually singing the melody, and my fingers are just picking out strings, which I'm really like I'm accompanying myself as if I was singing, but I'm not singing. I'm using my A finger and my M finger on my right hand to kind of interweave the melody into the piece. So I'm not following a particular structure to arrange. If it sounds good to my ear and it's flowing, that's good enough for me. That's the way I write, and that's the way I arrange pieces. I get the general spirit. No matter what, I don't focus too much on theory or technique. I just trust my ears. If it sounds good, it usually is good.
Pat Coldrick, could you demonstrate the things you said about the wrist angle?
Oh yes, yeah, okay.
And also how you play tirando and apoyando, and you tend to play tirando instead of apoyando. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Good tea. Hi, folks. I would like to talk to you a little bit about right hand technique, and particularly with classical guitar. The old fashioned technique for the right hand was to arch your wrist like up like this and pluck the strings kind of, perpendicular to the strings. But by doing that, modern guitar teaching now has changed that slightly. They've changed the angle of the wrist from there to there. Very natural, as if you could imagine your hand by your side as if you're walking. You bring it around over the guitar, and it's just nice, and just let it hang naturally. It kind of, it's not forced, it's just natural. Now, first of all, the problem with the old way of picking, if you pick a string like, if you can imagine, you're picking perpendicular to the string, okay? Now, if you can imagine, when you do that, most of the string vibration is going parallel to the soundboard. So, in actual fact, you're not getting as much volume out of the note because most of the string sound is not going into the sound box. If you alter your hand shape from to here, which you can imagine you're picking the strings slightly at an angle, like a 45-degree angle, maybe not that much, but at a slight angle. By picking that way, you're plucking, and as you're plucking, you can't help but push the string in slightly towards the soundboard. So you can imagine the string vibration, there's some of it going in that way, which is a good thing because it's coming into the hole. So if you can listen to, and it's a subtle difference, but it's much bigger note, much purer, louder, much more projection. And also, in order to pluck that way, if you file your nails, kind of, you start here and file them like a ramp shape. So when you pluck the string is kind of catching in a little point here, and when you follow through in the picking motion, if you can imagine, the shape of the nail is because it's kind of shaped at an angle, is pushing the string, helping to push the string inwards as well. And a lot of modern guitar, classical guitar players use this technique. It's much more natural as opposed to the old Talagaway or the Segovia John Williams style. Nothing wrong with that, but they find that this is a much more comfortable, much more natural position. And also very important when you're using your right hand. You see a lot of players, they suffer with repetitive strain injury, and that's from being too tense. It's very, very important that everything is nice and loose and limp. And one more very interesting point, guitar pickers, like sometimes they pluck too hard, like where you should be playing softly, right? Because if you can imagine your right hand on a scale of 1 to 10 volume-wise, always feel that you're playing at about 6. Feel that you're playing quietly. Feel that there's a baby asleep in the corner and you don't want to wake him up. Because sometimes we pick too hard because we think we can't be heard. And that's not a good thing, because you don't get that much more volume by plucking hard. The actual sound gets more harsh. So it's a nice idea to sort of pluck and feel that you're playing quietly. That helps to relax the right hand and the fingers. And you'll find yourself playing much more fluently.
What guitars did you use on the new album?
I used the guitar that we built on Ophelia. A lot of the pieces, and about half the pieces on Ophelia were played with the guitar that we made. And again, that was one of the reasons I called the album Ophelia. And I also used my Takamine 132 SC electro classical guitar as well. So a mixture between both guitars.
Yeah. And what about amplifying? Did you use the air amp on the album, the guitar amp that you are endorsing?
Yes, I always use the air amps both live and in the studio, because the air amps are an integral part of my sound. I don't use the amps purely for volume or to be heard or for reinforcement, let's say. I use the amps to give myself a certain sound, and I have my own particular sound that is very recognizable. It's my sound. So the amps are an integral part of my sound. So yes, I use the airs. I always use the airs anytime I play. Tremolo is quite a difficult thing to do, but it's one of the best. It's a beautiful technique, and it is also one of the best exercises for your right hand. I mean, we pick up guitar books and you have loads of scales and arpeggios and lots of boring stuff. You know, I say boring, tongue in cheek. It is actually very, very good. Of course, it is, to develop your fingers and right hand and timing. But the tremolo in itself, it's an excellent technique to develop your right hand and the awareness of your fingers in relation to the string that they're plucking. And a good tip for tremolo, in fact, a good tip playing generally, is forget about what your left hand is doing. You see a lot of guitar players and they're always looking at their left hand on the fretboard, right? It's a better idea to concentrate what your right hand is doing and concentrate very carefully on the strings that you're picking with the right hand and what fingers you're using. And in order to do that, if you can actually close your eyes and visualize your finger hitting the string. In other words, it's sometimes, imagine if you were blind and you couldn't see, but you get the sense of where it is. Imagine where the finger is over the string and get used to, you know, the feel of where the finger is in relation to the string you want to pluck. So visualize it mentally in your mind is a great idea. And that really helps very well with tremolo as well. If you visualize what the fingers are trying to do, and when you're practicing tremolo, never practice it fast. When I'm practicing tremolo, this is the tempo that I practice. No faster than that, because what that does, or you should practice it at a tempo that you can execute the notes perfectly, even if you have to play it this slow. And make a conscious effort in your mind to strike the string, particularly the second string, which sometimes when you play tremolo, the fingers are catching, the first string as well. So get the feeling of the awareness of your fingers over the second string, and try and visualize the A finger hitting the first, the M finger, and get used to where the hand is. Get the feel of where the hand is, and keep it very, very still, but also keep it very relaxed. So visualization of what the right hand fingers are doing is very, very important.
And to talk a little about the studio recording, what kind of microphones did you use on the new album?
Yes, when I record and when I play live, I will always have a mic on the guitar and also have a mic or two mics on the amps as well. I use two air amps when recording and playing live, and I use them in stereo. And what I use are two condenser mics on the amps, and they would be the ones I find that work best for me are Rode NT5s. Quite an inexpensive microphone, but very, very good. In a live situation on the guitar, I would use an AKG 414, and also an ambient mic. It could be a Schoeps, whatever they would have in the particular theatre, just to pick up some of the room sound. So we blend all them and mix them all together to get a particular sound. In the studio situation, I use the Rode NT5s on the amps, and I would use a Neumann microphone. This is what I found best that worked in the studio that I recorded in. A Neumann picked up all the frequencies on the guitar, so it was a good mic to use on the guitar. But also another Neumann was in the room picking up the room sound. So again, we had three different channels. We had one for the room, one for the guitar, and one for the amps. And again, we mixed all them three channels together to get a particular sound.
Were you responsible for the audio recording yourself, or did you have a sound engineer that you used on the album? Or you talk about the microphones. Did you select them yourself, or did your sound engineer select them?
No, the sound engineer selects them. When I record in the studio, I focus mainly on playing, and I trust the sound engineer who I know, and he's also my producer as well. And uh, when he says it's right, I tend to sort of agree with him. So he would choose. He knows the sound I'm looking for. We've worked together for years, so it's sometimes a bit like you can have too many chefs in the kitchen. So he does his job. He picks the right mics and makes the decisions on the music and the audio as well. And of course, I will listen. But fortunately, I'm always very happy with the sound he produces. It's always good to have a producer when you record, if you can afford to have one, because um, their ears are trained to hear certain frequencies, and they understand the whole audio range, and they understand recording a lot more than I would. I mean, I try to focus just on the playing when I'm in the studio and let him do the rest.
Do you prefer being in a studio, or do you prefer being on stage performing in front of a live audience?
Oh, I much prefer playing live to a live audience. I'm not a great fan of the studio for a few different reasons. Well, firstly, I love the connection and the energy that you get from a live concert or performing live. I love the rapport with the audience. I love the energy, the excitement, and the whole thrill of the whole occasion. And I also love to watch the people enjoy the music from the guitar. That's something that you don't get in the studio. A studio can be a very clinical, cold place. It's difficult sometimes to give a good performance of a piece in a studio because you're surrounded by microphones and wires, and it's kind of a strange situation. And to give a performance from your heart is quite difficult in a studio, where in a live situation, it's much easier to um, to perform and get more feeling into the music. Now, in saying that, we work very hard in the studio to get a performance. I mean, I would do many takes of the pieces that I play and pick one that has the best. We always try and capture the spirit and the music in a studio situation. The studio recording is difficult. The classical guitar is a very difficult instrument to play, and also in a studio situation, um, it will show up any tiny little idiosyncrasy, like it could be a little string buzz or a tuning issue, a multitude of things that in a live situation you wouldn't notice as much. So you need to be very precise in the studio, and sometimes you can get so tense from trying to avoid making little errors and trying to get the recording right, and also your breathing as well. The microphones can sometimes pick up your breathing, and it's difficult. It's very difficult to record in a studio situation properly. So for all those reasons, I really enjoy and find it easier to play live than I would in the studio, which is interesting because some people would suffer from nerves, stage fright. I get nervous myself, but after the first couple of pieces, it's fine, and it's great fun, and I just love playing live. Much prefer it.
And you also mentioned yesterday when we planned this interview that when you are performing in the studio, you have to be very particular about playing the right notes. But is that different when you are playing on stage?
No, I would still put in the same amount of effort to play correctly and to play as well as I can sort of technically play. Um, but in the studio, um, well, sometimes little tiny little errors, you won't notice them live, but you notice every little glitch in the studio. It will show up in the audio. It might be even the likes of even a string noise from your fingers or something like that, and you can't let that go in a studio recording, because it's once you record it and you put it down on a CD, it's there forever. Um, so it has to be absolutely perfect, and because of the nature of the instrument, it's very difficult. It's not like playing a piano where you just press the keys and you have a pure sound. Many things have to work exactly right at the same time playing a note on a classical guitar. So to get a clean recording, it's very difficult in a studio situation. But live, you won't notice these little small little defects. At the minute.
Uh, you have also written your arrangements for popular Irish tunes like
Was it the Sally Gardens?
now the Sally Gardens, and that's the Flower Association.
Yes, the
Yeah,
Sally Gardens. Okay.
yeah,
Uh, yes, I mean, and that's my arrangement of that. I mean, all those traditional tunes are my arrangements. Yes.
and what is your approach to recording or arranging traditional pieces? Do you use the classical approach by writing variations on the melody, or what is your approach?
I don't really use any technical, theoretical way of writing music. I literally play what I hear inside. Now, in theory, some of the lines might not be technically or theoretically correct musically, but it sounds good and it's right and it's what I'm hearing inside. I play and I write and I transfer to the guitar what I'm hearing inside, not what's theoretically correct on paper, if you understand me. And that's the way I write music. I write the way I hear it inside.
Har du bare altid drømt om at spille guitar? Kan dine fingre slet ikke vente med at skulle røre ved de der strenge? Jamen, så er Guitaren DK lige noget for dig.
And one final question about Ophelia. Did you write sheet music for the songs, and will they be available?
Yes, I am on my website. I have quite a few of my original pieces scored for the guitar in music and also in tab format as well. And they're on the same page. One line would be music notation, and underneath it would be the tab, which is great. So anybody that can't read the dots can read tab. Now I haven't got every piece I've written scored yet, but I'm doing it. I'm presently just doing one piece from Ophelia, getting scored by somebody at the minute, Passionel. Which is a lovely piece as well. That's been scored at the minute. Eventually, I will get around to writing a book of all my scores and all my arrangements and all my. Don't do it myself. Well, the only reason that you would use your fingernails in playing classical guitar is that they produce a sound with more projection. Sometimes when you play, like in the olden days, the Fernando Sor, Giuliani, they played with just their fingertips very, very quietly. But when Segovia came along and players before him and were playing in front of kind of smaller audiences, they needed to make the guitar sound louder. So it's like using a plectrum. You get a better strike on the string, and you get a louder sound and a more sound with more projection and character. That's point number one. Point number two is the argument about what shape should your nails be. There are many ways of filing your nails. It depends on your own nail shape. I find that works best for me is that, I don't know if you can see it on the picture, but I have my nails in a kind of a ramp style that you can imagine. I don't know if
you we can see it, yeah.
They're slightly angled to one side. So when I make contact with a string, the first point of contact in the string with me is the little point where the flesh and the nail meets. It's like a little groove. You can imagine it as a V groove, right? And then you follow through with just like the nail or the string kind of goes along the shape of the nail, which is like a ramp. The reason it's like a ramp is that when you're picking, you're actually pushing the string inwards slightly towards the sound box. This is a file made by called Oasis. I don't know where you buy them in Europe, but the Stafford Guitar Centre in the UK have them.
Okay.
They're files for classical guitarists, and there are 4 different abrasive grades on the file. You have a coarse, you have medium, and you have fine, and you have ultra-fine.
Okay.
Now, with the ultra-fine, after you just file your nails, I mean, the coarse will put a shape on your nail. Then this next grade down will kind of, if you can imagine, you're going to have some scratches from the paper. This will take away those scratches more, and then you go to the next grade, will even file them down smoother and more, and then the polish grade, the last grade, will buff them like glass, which means that when you pick the string, you don't get this scratchy sound.
Exactly. So you file them underneath the nails also, underneath the nails.
All over, yes.
All over. Okay, I see.
There and over the top, the whole surface of whatever part of the nail is making contact with the string has to be like glass, no scratches, and because that will give you a tinny kind of a scratchy sound on the string. So yes, I would pay a lot of attention to the shape of my nails, and I would. That's the most important tool in my toolbox.
Aha. Very good. A very good tip. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Friedrich. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you very much for the interview. And very best of luck with the magazine. It's great. It's been a pleasure, and I'd like to send all my best wishes from Ireland to all your listeners and all your readers. And I look forward in the futures to visit your country and meet you all and play some concerts and maybe drink some beer.